This is the Infinite Moment Podcast, where we discuss topics that focus on stress relief solutions. Welcome back to the Infinite Moment Podcast. Today we'll be talking about how our senses can be used to help manage our stress levels. So most of us learn about the senses that we have as humans when we're children. This is something you will learn in very early education. So those senses would be sight, touch, taste, smell, sound. But there's other senses that we have as humans that can also help aid in our process of managing and trying to reduce our stress level. And today what we're going to do is look at how each of those senses are used by our body in the first place, and then how we can in turn use those senses for our own almost biohacking. So there's a couple different articles that we're going to be able to look through that kind of break this topic down and will help us have some insight on what the senses really do for us and how we can best use them and how we can use them to our advantage. So just a little forewarning, I am overcoming a cold at this time, so my voice may go out a little bit, but if you can bear with me and we'll kind of get through it and get this information out there. Now, I do think it's important to keep in mind that we are all different, and the extent to which we experience each of these senses are different. So take this information in and try and process it in a way that it makes most sense for you and how you perceive the world through your senses. All right, so let's go ahead and get into the first article for today. You have more than 5 human senses. How are you using yours? We often take our ability to taste our favorite food or listen to a song we love for granted, but neither of these things would be possible without our human senses. Everything we experience and perceive while we're alive is thanks to our human senses. We can see the world around us using our sense of sight or smell a flower with our sense of smell. But what about sensing pain or our inner body awareness? Are these not also senses that contribute to the human experience? For a long time, it was widely accepted that the human body only had 5 senses. However, modern neuroscience has shown that they aren't the only senses we have at our disposal. Let's take a deeper look at all of our senses, how we can engage them to live a more fulfilling life. With the help of sensory receptors, we gather, process, and respond to various stimuli, such as a sound or a smell. For example, the taste receptors on our tongue collect different tastes. They can translate them into sensory information our brain can understand. That's why we can distinguish between salty and sweet food. Other types of sensory receptors help our eyes detect the presence of light, enable us to hear music, or allow us to feel textures. In other words, they create our perceived reality. We can trace the concept of human senses all the way back to ancient Greece, where they were commonly known as the windows of the soul. It was during this time that philosopher Aristotle was the first to define the 5 primary senses we're familiar with today: touch, sight, taste, sound, smell. Aristotle then classified the senses in accordance with our sensory organs: skin, eyes, mouth, ears, and nose. His classification of the human senses was so enduring that most people accepted it as a universal truth. Is this right? Or are there other senses that shape the human experience? Traditionally, only 5 human senses have been known and accepted as common knowledge. Many schools still teach that these senses are the only ways that the human brain can receive information about the body or the outside world. Before we dive deeper into how many senses we truly have, let's explore each of the traditional senses, the ones we were taught in school and their functions. Touch, or somatosensation. The sense of touch responds to anything that comes in contact with the skin, thanks to a network of receptors called the somatosensory system. This system tells us when something's cold or hot, rough or smooth, painful or itchy, and so on. As you're reading this, you're probably feeling the soft texture of the sofa or the hard surface of a chair under you. The nervous system constantly collects and makes sense of information from thousands of different mechanoreceptors, tiny sensory organs in your skin and hair follicles that register even the smallest pressure. Touch plays a central role in our interaction with the world and crucial in our mental, emotional, physical well-being. Skin-to-skin contact is scientifically proven to reduce loneliness and stress. According to a recent study, physical contact reduces the perception of feeling alone and enhances physiological well-being. Ultimately, it can help ward off loneliness. Sight or vision. Vision lets us visually process the world around us. It allows us to see the faces of friends and family or perform daily activities we sometimes take for granted. For example, you can't drive a car without sight. It's also an excellent way to gather information about our surroundings and protect ourselves from danger. Eyesight starts when light passes through the front layer of our eyeball, called the cornea, then enters the human eye through the pupil, makes its way to our retina. When light lands on the retina, it's transformed into electrical signals that travel to the brain through the optic nerve. It's there that our brains transform these signals into the images we see every day. Sight plays an essential role in many aspects of our lives. Take communicating with others, for example. Besides verbal cues, sight allows us to see and interpret nonverbal cues like body language. Being able to interpret and understand people's body language helps you develop emotional awareness. It also helps you bond better with individuals. Vision can affect the body's sleep-wake cycle. In visually impaired people, the absence of light can cause a desynchronized circadian rhythm, affecting sleep quality. Taste or gustation. There are nearly 10,000 taste buds on the tongue, roof of the mouth, and throat. These tiny bumps power our sense of taste. Without them, all the delicious foods you've eaten in your life wouldn't have tasted like anything. Imagine taking your first bite of a rich chocolate cake. As soon as the cake makes contact with your tongue, a chemical reaction triggered by tiny receptors on your taste buds lets you experience a sweet flavor. Sweetness is one of the 5 core types of taste. The other tastes we experience are sour, bitter, salty, and umami. The fifth taste, umami, is a Japanese word that describes a savory, meaty flavor. It's common in foods rich in proteins like meats, cheese, or shellfish. The purpose of tasting isn't just to experience yummy foods, it's also vital for our survival. How would our ancestors know when their mammoth meat went bad without their sense of taste? Hearing or audition. Hearing enables us to perceive the world through sound. It allows you to listen to others speak, hear music, or hear the sound of birds chirping in the morning. The hearing process begins when sound waves enter the ear and move towards the eardrum. On contact, they cause the eardrums, malleus, stapes, and incus bones to vibrate. Our inner ear converts these vibrations into electrical signals with the help of tiny hair cells. The auditory nerve then picks up these signals and sends them directly to the brain. Finally, our brain interprets these signals as sounds. Our sense of hearing plays a vital role in communication. Listening is what enables you to learn spoken language as a child. It also plays a crucial role in your adult life. Effective communication skills give you an advantage in the workplace. For example, critical listening skills help you analyze complex information or handle challenging client requests. Smell, olfaction. Our sense of smell lets us pick up clues about our surroundings by analyzing tiny fragments of matter in the air we breathe in through our noses. When you ask people which sense they give up if they had to, smell is usually the top answer. Comparison, we often consider the other senses more important to our quality of life. However, our sense of smell is anything but disposable. Here are a few notable ways that olfaction enhances our lives. Protects from potential dangers, such as smelling a gas leak, stimulates appetite, enhances sense of taste, conjures up feelings and memories, both good and bad. Our noses are closely linked to memory and emotion. Scents travel through the nasal cavity to the olfactory bulb, which is connected to the hippocampus and amygdala. The concept of the five human senses is outdated. Neuroscientists agree that people are gifted with far more than five senses that we learn in school. So, how many senses do we have exactly? Well, this is where they disagree. The exact number of human senses is still the subject of ongoing discussion and scientific research. There can be as many as 9, 21, or even more. Ultimately, it depends on how you define each sense. For example, you can look at vision as one sense, or divide it into two, light and color. Let's explore some theories about the full spectrum of all human senses and their functions. How can you stand up without falling over, or locate your left knee with your eyes closed? Besides the five senses that you're familiar with, there are other senses you use every day without even realizing it. Balance or equilibrioception. Equilibrioception is our sense of balance. The organ responsible for balance, the vestibular system, is located in the inner ear. It works together with the visual system to help the body maintain balance and coordination. It helps us stand and walk without toppling over and sit upright in a chair, and it generally allows us to move smoothly. When something throws off our balance, we can experience dizziness and nausea. A typical example of this is motion sickness caused by being on a moving plane or ship. Body awareness, proprioception. Proprioception or kinesthesia is the ability to sense our body's location, movement, and actions. It's why we can go up a flight of stairs without having to look down or locate different body parts with our eyes closed. Proprioception comes from receptors found in muscles, joints, and tendons. When you move, these receptor cells inform your brain of your position and actions. Temperature or thermoception. Thermoception is an awareness of the temperature of your external environment. Having this awareness helps you dress warmly in low temperatures or avoid touching a hot stove. Pain or nociception. Nociception is another sense that protects us. When our body receives a painful stimulus like a cut, it activates pain receptors called nociceptors. They alert the body of danger and trigger an appropriate defense response. So, how to engage your senses? Engaging the senses means proactively activating them through meaningful everyday practices. You can engage multiple senses simultaneously or choose to focus on one particular sense. To engage your senses, you have to pay full attention to the activity you're doing. Be mindful of each sense you are using. That helps you become grounded in the present moment and create more meaningful and memorable life experiences. Engaging your senses can also reduce stress and anxiety. That's because self-care strategies that relieve stress and anxiety involve using one or more of your senses. Here are simple yet powerful ways to engage your senses and become more centered. Practice mindfulness. Mindfulness is the practice of being fully present in the moment, intensely aware of where you are and what you're doing. Mindfulness activities like meditation and mindful breathing can help you engage your senses. Engage in physical exercise. Experts recommend engaging in regular workouts. Exercise can help you read and interpret interoceptive signals better. Yoga is a form of exercise that engages different senses. During a yoga session, you activate your sense of balance, proprioception, and inner body awareness. The focus on breathing and observing can help you become more centered. Spending quality time with petting your furry companion is a sensory experience that engages many senses. When you're stroking or hugging your pet, you're activating the senses of touch, sight, sound, and even smell. This activity is scientifically proven to reduce stress, lower blood pressure, and reduce loneliness. Go on a nature walk. Spending time in nature is one of the best ways to activate your senses. Next time you walk along your local nature trail, pay attention to the sounds of the birds or the crunch of leaves beneath your feet. Take a look around. What do you see? What do you smell? With each step you take, notice how your body moves and the pace of your breathing. Listen to music. Most of us have music in the background when we're doing daily activities like cleaning or driving. But to fully engage your sense of sound, try turning your entire focus to it. As you're hearing the music, be fully present. Pay close attention to changes in your body. Focus on these creative sounds that can relieve stress and anchor you in the present moment. Cook your favorite meal. COVID-19 has turned the art of cooking into a wellness trend of its own. What used to be a functional task became a sanctuary of happiness and relaxation for many. A recent study found that cooking as a leisure activity led to psychological well-being during the pandemic. Cooking or baking with all your senses can turn a chore into an immersive, pleasurable experience. Our ability to use all these senses is a gift. Imagine what life would be like without even one of them. If you want to take full advantage of your senses, start practicing activities that engage them. Truly paying attention can create more meaningful experiences and enhance your well-being. Okay, so that article helped us to understand the standard five senses and beyond. So the standard five senses, once again, are sight, touch, smell, taste, sound. All right, so how do we use our sight every day? We navigate the world predominantly, through our sight and being able to take feedback from our eyes through the light, through the reflection of light off of different surfaces to navigate the world in a safe way and in a productive way as well. Touch. Touch is another sense that we rely on heavily to be able to navigate this world. Without touch, we wouldn't have any sense of feedback of, where we're at and what we're feeling and what is safe and what is not. You need to be able to discern between something that's sharp, something that's soft, smooth, rough to the touch. The sense of touch is a very important sense for us to be able to, accurately make our way through this life. Also, hearing. Many times our hearing may be our first line of defense from a potential threat, oftentimes before we see it. So the ability to hear when it comes to that is very important. But it also allows us to experience enjoyable sounds such as music. So that's the great thing about our senses. Not only is it there as almost a warning system, but it also allows us to have pleasurable experiences in this life. Another sense that can often be used to help forewarn us is the sense of smell. Think about a fire. You'll probably smell the smoke before you see the fire if it started in another room. So that's another way that our senses are there to really help us navigate this world in a safe and a productive manner. You'll notice a lot of times children or young, like babies, will chew on things or put things in their mouth to try to understand what it is. So that's another interesting thing about our senses. Now, what's cool is our senses actually go beyond that or can be broken down further, such as our sense of balance or equilibrium. It uses both the sense of sight and the inner ear to be able to position ourselves so that we're not just falling over or moving, haphazardly as we walk or run. It's very important, but we often don't think about it. And there's other senses like that that we do know about. And also there's senses that our body uses that we probably don't understand in the least bit at all. So ongoing research in this topic all the times, but great article for helping us to understand. Now in the next article, we're actually going to look into using an exercise that helps break down how to use the standard five senses together or through a process to help us reduce our stress levels. So let's get into it. How to use your five senses to reduce stress and anxiety from thriveworks.com. The stress and anxiety many of us experience on a day-to-day basis can be exhausting. Fortunately, however, there are a ton of grounding techniques and calming exercises that help to bring us back to our center again. And one of those practices requires nothing other than your five senses, simply referred to as the five sense grounding exercise. Psychotherapist Becky Howie knows just how effective this practice can be in resolving unwanted anxiety. Oftentimes, when we feel anxious, we get caught up in our heads, listening to the worry tape that plays on repeat without even realizing it, she says. And one way to get off that worry train is to bring ourselves back to our bodies through our five senses, walking through each of them and noticing what information they are bringing to us. I find this exercise has added a calming effect if you do it outside in nature. Now let's begin the countdown, starting with sight. Look around and find 5 different things in your environment that you can see and describe them in as much detail as you can, as if you were trying to explain them to a blind person. Notice colors, shapes, light, shadow, etc. Looking out my window, I see a tree standing tall, with tiny leaves that grow in size as they near the ends of the branches. The tree is planted in a small rectangle of mulch, which creates a break in the concrete sidewalk. I also see my car, a blue Trailblazer, sitting about 20 feet from this tree. If I redirect my attention to the inside of my office, I see a stack of books sitting on my desk, which vary in size, a vase of ceramic pink flowers atop the ledge of the staircase, and finally, my thermos of coffee, designed to look like a clean cut of wood. So the first one was sight, 5 things you can see. The next one is sound, 4 things you can hear. Same as above, but close your eyes. Try to identify 4 different sounds you can hear and describe them in detail. You may have to slow down a bit to notice subtle or quiet sounds. I can hear the click-clacking of my keyboard while I type, which quickens and slows sporadically. I can also hear my coworker guiding his mouse across his desk, cars honking and zooming by outside, and a real mouse gnawing at the beams above me. This last noise I don't like so much. Touch. 3 things you can touch. Find 3 ways to interact with your environment using your sense of physical touch. Can you run your fingers through the grass? Feel your butt in a chair or on the ground? Notice the cool air on your cheeks. I can feel my foot pressed comfortably against the wall in front of me. My toes fit perfectly between it and the leg of my desk. Also feel the smoothness of my keyboard and the grooves between each key. And lastly, I feel my back pressed against my leather desk chair, which is super cozy, might I add. Smell. 2 things you can smell. Seek out 2 things you can smell. Perhaps it's freshly mowed grass or the smell of your detergent on your clothes. I can smell the sweet but strong aroma of my coffee as I raise my thermos to my mouth. The smell is comforting. I can also smell the sweat and the sunshine left on my sweater from the last time that I wore it. I remember thinking I could get one more wear out of this sweater before I needed to throw it in the wash. The smell is nice, and I stand by my decision. Taste. 1 thing you can taste. Is there something in your environment you can safely taste? A drink or food nearby? If not, simply notice the taste inside your mouth. My mouth is full of sweetness as I'm in the middle of eating my breakfast, chocolatey granola, ripe strawberries, and vanilla Greek yogurt. I love the bursts of chocolate that awaken my taste buds and the subtler taste of the yogurt that counters it. Simple sweetness puts me in a good mood, sets me up for a great day. How'd you do? Were you able to count down using your 5 senses in this mindful exercise? I hope so, and I hope that it helped to reduce your anxiety. Now if you're up for it, you can perform one more exercise similar to the one above. I invite you to go someplace safe in your mind. This can be a real place or imaginary one, or a combination of both. The only requirement is that it is a place you feel like you can safely relax, let go, and be yourself. Call that place up in your mind in as much detail as you possibly can. Then walk through the 5 senses exercise above in your mind's eye in this happy place you have created. This exercise can help you ease your worries when you feel anxiety coming on, or serve as a reminder to your mind that it's okay to relax, she explains. Okay, so that was a breakdown of the 5 sense grounding exercise, which I like a lot because it seems to have a lot to do with like visualization and putting yourself in the mindfulness state of each of your senses, starting with sight. So you think about 5 different things that you currently see. And then you think of 4 things that you currently hear. And then you think of 3 things that you can physically touch. two things that you can smell, and then one thing that you can taste. Not only can you do this in your immediate environment to maybe reduce a level of stress that you're feeling in your current environment, but you can actually visualize yourself in a place that's quite enjoyable or somewhere that you feel very comfortable and run through all these senses in the same way. So instead of trying to perceive what you're seeing in this moment, you're visualizing, you're using your mind's eye to put yourself in a situation that's pleasurable, and then you're sensing what you would be seeing there, what you would be hearing, what would you touch, and what could you smell, what would you taste. So great exercise. I like that a lot. It's to me it's almost something you can incorporate with a meditation. Now, if you may not want to use this exercise if you're in a fight or flight type of situation where you need to make a split decision on whether to, stay or go in order to protect yourself in some way. But if you're working on reducing a non-immediate stressor or something that's more of a passive stressor, then this can be a very effective way to process that. All right. So great articles today. I think that was a lot of good information on a good breakdown into our senses in general, and then expanded upon that somewhat, and how we can pay attention more to these senses in our everyday lives and as special moments where we need to, so that we can regulate and manage these stress levels and live high quality lives. All right, so with that being said, that's going to wrap up this episode of the Infinite Moment podcast. And I'll catch you guys next time, man. Take it easy.